Hey YouTube, welcome back. Today we have this problem. It's called find winner on a tic-tac-toe game. The problem being asked by Tesla, Amazon, and Microsoft. The problem said that tic-tac-toe is played by two players, A and B, on a 3x3 grid. The rules of tic-tac-toe are players take turns placing characters into empty squares. The first player, A, plays X characters while the second player B plays 0 characters. X and 0 characters are always placed into empty squares, never on field ones. The game ends when there are three of the same non-empty character filling any row, any column or any diagonal. The game also ends if all squares are non-empty. No more moves can be played if the game is over. Given a 2D integer array moves where moves of I equals row of I and column of I indicates that the ith move will be played on the grid rows of I and column of I. Return the winner of the game if it exists, A or B. In case the game ends in a draw, return draw. If they're all still movements to play, return pending. You can assume that moves is valid, follows the rules of tic-tac-toe. The grid initially empty and A will be played first. Okay, so let's talk about this problem. Let's delete this and let's just try to talk. So let's assume that we have this grid, okay, and we have it like that, okay, and yeah, and just make it right. So the way that we can solve this one, we have one, we can just make a brute force to just try to loop and do another loop inside it to just check every one and to know if do we have a winner or not. And this way, just a brute force, I guess it would be O of n squared. No, it will be n of m because we talk about the column and the rows. And the other thing, let's first talk about how can we win. Actually, we have if we have all rows, or all columns, or all rows, or all diagonals. So this is the three rows. This is the three ways. So maybe also the anti-diagonal this way also. It's anti-diagonal. So the way that we can do it, that we can just save two lists, one for the column and one for the row. Okay, and maybe we try to save each move in a column and a row. Like each move of the players, we put them in the column, and its column we put in the column, and its row we put in the row. And also maybe you can have this would be arrays, and by having these two arrays, we could just check, we just save all the movements of the columns and save all the movements of the rows. And if we find any columns that is position equals n, we basically return true, because if it's equals n this time equals 3. If you have 3 from a specific column, that means you win. If I have 3 for a specific row, that means you win. So basically we got these two solutions, but we have the other thing, that we have the diagonal, okay, and we have the anti-diag. Okay, let's just do it like that. And the diagonal, basically we will also search if it's equals to n, which is 3, or the anti-diagonal is equals to n, which is equals 3. We will try to to return true or false about specific A1 or B1. To maybe make sure that which A or which B, we can just create a variable called player, and this one will equals to 1. And for each loop, like if it's equals to 1, it refers to A, and if it equals to -1, so it refers to B. So for each loop we are referring to A or B, because the first one is always A, so it will be 1. The second one, player or B, was -1. So yeah, I guess this is what come to my mind, and I guess it will be a good solution to solve. Let's try to solve it. So first of all, just const n equals 3. We have const rows equals new array. Also we have the array is should be from 3, because actually if you see that we have only 3 rows from n, and we fill them with the 0. Fill 0. Okay, and not rows, and this will be columns. Calls, let's call it calls. And also to be the same, we will have the diagonal and the anti-diagonal. Let's because I'll change the value. Let diag equals 0. Let anti diag equals 0, and let's say let player equals 1. And I guess this is all the variables that we need. And basically, as we said, that diagonal is like that, the anti-diagonal is the opposite way. We'll make a for loop. Let's make a for loop. Let's say const move const make a fall off, so it will be const move of moves, and I will say const row equals move of 0, because as we said before, it's the move, the first one is row, and the second one talks about the column. So const column equals move of 1, and I don't want to make it pretty hard, so like rows array, so it will be, we will understand what we're talking about, because the difference between columns and ONS, it will be pretty hard to be understand this code. So first of all, I wanna edit the specific row, so I will say rows array of row plus I add to it player, okay, which will be here 1. I will see columns array of col with plus equals player. And we will say okay, right now we have we updated the columns, the specific elements of the columns array. We want to do the diagonal, so I'll say if the column equals row. Basically, if the column equals row, that means we are in the diagonal. So if we look at this one, that means the column equals row because it's 1 and 1. So if that was the case, I would say that the egg will be plus equals player. I will add to it the value of the player, and I will say also if row plus column equals n minus 1, that means we are in the anti-diagonal. So diagonal will be plus equal be plus player plus equal player. And I would say also if math the absolute, right now we're checking the four conditions. Okay, we add the rows, we add the columns, also we add the values of the diagonals. We did all of that. We want to check right now, so we want to check for 4 things. First of all, we're checking if if the row of the rows equals 3. That means we return. So yeah, I will say that if math the absolute row, and I will tell you why we're doing absolute. You will understand why we're doing absolute in a bit, basically. Oh no, not good. Why is this happening? What is this? Yeah. Okay. So rows array, if rows array of row equals n, or columns array of column equals n, messed up through also. Calls and this call, and also that could be work also. Let's just take these 2 conditions with us. I would say if, let's just make each condition at 1 line. To be like the code will be more readable. So I will say also if math the absolute diagonal equals n, or math the absolute anti-diagonal. Basically, if any one of these 4 values equals n, that means we have a winner. So we want to know which winner. So I will say if the player equals 1. Why is the problem? I guess because of all of the, let's see, what is the problem that I've done here? Yeah, and what is the problem? I don't know. Okay, so let's continue. Play if we return, if we find that means we have a winner. So we say if player equals 1, we return A, otherwise we return B capital. And we should change the player with each loop, so the player will be multiply plus equals minus 1. Let me just try to describe the code, but let me first find where is the problem. Oh, I did big mistake. Yeah, I guess. And if we didn't return anything from the loop, that means that we maybe have a draw. So return if moves the length equals n, multiply by n. That means that there is no move to be, so we return a draw. Otherwise we return pending, as they told us. Oh. So let's just talk about what we have done here. So first we have these variables. The n, it's talk about the we can just use 3, but just using n, I guess it would be better. We created 2 lists to track the columns and the rows. We created 2 variables, diagonal and the anti-diagonal, to track also the diagonal and the anti-diagonal. We create a variable called player, so in it was a, it will be 1, b, it will be -1. So basically, for each one, we select the column and the row from specific move, and we save it in the rows and the columns array. Okay, but we save it in the value of the player. For the first one, it will be, let's talk about this one. So in this one, you will talk about a, so you will add 1. So and also if it's diagonal, you will also add 1, because actually by this way we will win by diagonal. If diagonal, that means diagonal is that the row equals the columns, so that means it's diagonal, so it's equals 1. If row plus columns equals n -1, that means it's anti-diagonal, so you also increment it by 1. So we have the rows and the columns and the diagonal and the anti-diagonal. We have the false condition. So we said that, okay, let's just try to see, let's just to make 4 checks. If one of the rows equals 3, if the row right now, the current row equals 3, that means that we have a winner. If the current column equals 3, that means we have a winner. If the diagonal equals 3, that means we have a winner. If the anti-diagonal is equal 3, that means we have a winner. 3, and we do absolute here because basically we are referring a as 1 and b will be -1, -1 basically. So if you are -1, we try to add everything, so it will be -3. If b1, it will be -3. Like for this example, b1, it will be the anti-diagonal will be -3. So we do the math, the absolute, to make sure that if we find a winner or not. And we try to swap between 1 and -1 and add them to each other. So basically, if a has 1, we will find one of these 4 values equals 3. If b1, we will find one of these values will equals to -3. So let's submit the code. Shit, it doesn't work. Expected output pending and expected b. Let's check why that happened. Let's check why that happened. If math, okay, let's just check one by one. If row plus column equals n -1, anti-diagonal, I guess this one it's okay, this is weird. Okay, let's check. If column equals row, diagonal plus equals player. If rows, array of rows, okay, array of rows will equal this move 1, row move 1, b class equal player. Okay, everything looks fine. If row plus equals I could actually try to copy the right solution, but I just want to try to find it because maybe it's a good practice for both of us to learn. So I want to say if math the absolute rows of array, if math the absolute anti-diagonal equals n, math the absolute anti-diagonal equals n. Okay, let's see that here. If row plus column equals n minus 1, anti-diagonal will be plus equal, and we okay, that's weird. How many use cases that we fall actually? Okay, we have 3 only didn't work. Let's see. Okay, this is weird. Shouldn't be the problem. Let's see. Return 1. Okay. If math dot absolute anti-diagonal equals n. Return player equals 1. Math dot absolute row array of rows of row equals n. Math dot absolute columns array equals n. Or math dot absolute diagonal equals n. Or I don't know where the problem. I guess it looks that it should work. Let me just try to copy the code again. Maybe the problem actually in my code directly, or what? No, actually the problem wasn't in my code. I did something wrong, but I don't know what was it actually, so sorry for that. So however, it's the same thing, maybe the only different that rows and columns. We changed it. I make array of rows, I leave columns. Anyway, the same array, the same solution. So let's look at my solution and look about the performance of my solution. Okay, it's beat 30%, 93%. It's not bad, it's good. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope my source is quite good. If you like my content, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video, and see you in future problems.